Imagine a world where fear, hate, and propaganda were the tools of one man. One man who, through an iron fist, seized control of an entire nation. A world where an ideology of supremacy drove a war that would change the course of history forever. This is the story of Adolf Hitler, the man who built the Nazi Empire and the devastating legacy he left in his wake. From the dark streets of Vienna to the grand halls of Berlin, his rise was rapid, his ambitions boundless. But how did he achieve such power, and how did it all come crashing down? This is the story of Hitler's dark empire, the rise, the reign, and the inevitable fall. In the aftermath of World War I, Germany was shattered. The Treaty of Versailles in 1919 left the nation humiliated and economically crippled. Germany had to pay reparations of 132 billion gold marks, a crippling amount that exacerbated the country's economic troubles. The Great Depression that followed saw unemployment soar to over 6 million in 1932, nearly 30% of the workforce. This was the fertile ground that allowed Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party to rise to power. Hitler's message resonated with millions of Germans disillusioned by their country's defeat and ongoing economic hardship. His ability to speak directly to their frustrations gave him an almost magnetic appeal. By 1932, the Nazi Party was the largest in the Reichstag, securing 37.3% of the vote in the general elections. By January 1933, Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany. In the early days, Hitler used propaganda and promises of restoring Germany's former glory. He focused on rebuilding the economy, promising full employment and promising to undo the injustices of the Treaty of Versailles. His Volkswagen was launched in 1938 as a symbol of this new era, with plans to manufacture 5 million cars by the end of the decade. This would become a symbol of Nazi success, though in reality, only a fraction of those cars were ever produced. By 1939, Hitler had transformed Germany into a military powerhouse. The Wehrmacht, the German army, boasted over 3 million soldiers in 1939, and by 1940, the Luftwaffe had 4,500 aircraft, including the infamous Messerschmitt Bf 109, one of the most advanced fighter planes in the world. At its peak, the Nazi Empire stretched across much of Europe, controlling 8.3 million square kilometers, nearly 13% of the world's land area. This empire stretched from Norway in the north to the Mediterranean Sea in the south, and from France in the west to the Soviet Union in the east. In 1940 alone, the Nazis conquered France in just 6 weeks, bringing 350,000 British soldiers to the brink of capture at Dunkirk. The Nazi blitzkrieg tactics were so effective that within months, Germany dominated Europe. By 1941, the Third Reich had an estimated 7.5 million military personnel at its disposal, along with 4,000 tanks and over 1,200 aircraft. They were preparing for an invasion of the Soviet Union, Operation Barbarossa. At the beginning of the campaign, Nazi forces pushed over 500 kilometers into Soviet territory, capturing an estimated 1 million Soviet soldiers. However, the Nazis were not prepared for the vastness of Russia and the brutal winter that would eventually turn the tide of the war. The dark side of the Nazi Empire was a Holocaust, one of the most horrific genocides in human history. By the time the war ended in 1945, an estimated 6 million Jews had been murdered, along with millions of Romani, disabled individuals, and others deemed undesirable. The Nazis used a vast network of concentration camps and extermination camps, including Auschwitz, where over 1.1 million people were killed alone. The Holocaust began with the systematic exclusion of Jews from society in Germany. By 1935, the Nuremberg Laws were passed, which stripped Jews of their rights and segregated them from the rest of society. By 1941, the final solution was in place, and extermination camps were established across occupied Europe. The death toll was staggering, with 1/3 of the Jewish population in Europe wiped out by the Nazis. The scale of this genocide is unimaginable. 1.5 million children, 3 million Soviet prisoners of war, and over 200,000 Romani people were murdered under Nazi rule. These figures are not just numbers. They represent lives, families, cultures, and entire communities erased from existence. As the war continued, the Nazi Empire began to unravel. The turning point came in 1942 at the Battle of Stalingrad. Over 300,000 soldiers were killed, wounded, or captured as German forces were forced into retreat. The defeat in Stalingrad shattered the myth of Nazi invincibility. The Soviets pushed back, and by 1944, the Allies had invaded France on D-Day, with 156,000 American, British, and Canadian troops landing on the beaches of Normandy. By 1945, Nazi Germany was surrounded on all fronts. Berlin, once a symbol of Nazi power, was reduced to rubble as Soviet forces closed in from the east and Allied forces attacked from the west. Hitler, cornered in his underground bunker, took his own life on April 30th, 1945, marking the fall of the Third Reich. In total, World War II cost over 70 million lives, with military casualties alone exceeding 25 million. The war destroyed entire cities, including London, Warsaw, and Dresden. Germany itself was left in ruins. Nearly 30% of the country's pre-war infrastructure was destroyed, and millions of civilians died as a result of bombings, starvation, and the chaos of war. The legacy of the Nazi Empire is one of unspeakable horror, but also one of resilience. The atrocities of the Holocaust left an indelible mark on humanity. Today, the number 6 million serves as a chilling reminder of the victims of Nazi persecution. The scars of this period are felt around the world, from the survivors who bear witness to the atrocities to the laws and organizations that were created to prevent such horrors from happening again. After the fall of the Nazi regime, Germany was divided into 4 zones of occupation: American, British, French, and Soviet. The country would remain divided for nearly half a century, until the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989. But the impact of Hitler's reign extended far beyond Germany's borders. Globally, the war's aftermath reshaped international politics. The United Nations was created in 1945 with the aim of preventing future wars and upholding human rights. The world saw the establishment of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, a direct response to the atrocities of the Holocaust. The rise and fall of the Nazi Empire left an indelible mark on history. From the devastation of World War II to the horrors of the Holocaust, the impact of Hitler's legacy is still felt today. The numbers, the millions of lives lost, the thousands of cities destroyed, the billions of dollars spent only begin to tell part of the story. The real lesson lies in the haunting reminder of what happens when hatred, fear, and unchecked power go unchecked. As we look back, we must remember that the Nazi Empire's dark rise and fall were not just a tragic chapter of history. They were a warning of the dangers of totalitarianism, of unchecked ambition, and of the consequences of following a demagogue who promises glory but delivers destruction. In the end, Hitler's empire crumbled under the weight of its own brutality, but its legacy remains.